Well, then just be quiet. Yes, it is. Well, good morning. Here we are at the end of January, freezing our little pitocusses off. So I guess it's supposed to be a smidge warmer today. Yay, there's something worth celebrating right there. Well, we're coming up on the fourth Sunday after Epiphany. So we'll begin with our prayer. Holy God, you confound the world's wisdom in giving your kingdom to the lowly and the pure in heart. Give us such a hunger and thirst for justice and perseverance in striving for peace, that in our words and deeds the world may see the life of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. So we are in the Gospel of Matthew. We're in the new church year. We've switched over to the year of Matthew for our scripture. That's where we'll primarily get our gospel lessons. And so we have the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. Matthew 5, verses 1 through 12. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And he began to speak and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. For those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. The Gospel of the Lord. And the first lesson is for this coming Sunday is Micah. And the last verse of that reading is, He has told you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice and to love kindness and walk humbly with your God. And so that's kind of the tie-in with the Matthew text is that from Micah. So the Gospel of Matthew is a teaching gospel with Jesus serving as the master teacher. His primarily Jewish audience is learning from Jesus what it means to follow him and become his disciple. The Gospel of Matthew includes 5 lengthy discourses. Each discourse ends with the words, when Jesus had finished. Biblical scholars make comparisons between these discourses and the 5 books of the Torah. Because that's the thing with Matthew. Matthew's very tied in with the Jewish history and audience. That's where his primary concern is. The first of the 5 speeches of Jesus is found in Matthew 5 through 7. Since Jesus is teaching from the mountain, it is often called the Sermon on the Mount. Included in this discourse is a series of tips on how to live life. The next 5 lessons of the lectionary are all found in the Sermon on the Mount. If you have time, read through the entire Sermon on the Mount. That's Matthew 5, 1 through 7, 28. So imagine listening to Jesus teach. What would it have been like? He's up on that hill and you're down below listening to what he has to say. What do you think it would have been like?
It would have been based on how well you understood the words he was using.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Always know your audience.
Yep.
And
I think that's why he uses, in other places, he uses imagery that everybody's going to pick up
he
on.
had to try, and some of it is not easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
But the language, and of course this is. But the language, and of course this is a human being's deciphering what he said.
Yep.
Yep. Those are beautifully written.
Mm-hmm.
They're poetic.
They are, very much so.
And you might have gotten some things, and you might have not been real sure about others, and as they sat and listened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, am I catching everything? What was that he said?
They asked questions.
Mm-hmm.
After when it was done? Did they have the knowledge to, I can ask him a question, or were they in awe?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he's a teacher, then that automatically gives him a special position.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
Yeah. Well, and it was tradition that, somebody would read scripture and give commentary, and then you'd ask a lot of questions. That, that debating and discoursing was very much part of it. But that's, of course, those are the men who can spend the time at the synagogue and have a little more education.
and aren't out trying to work to find something to eat every day, or
Yeah.
take care of animals.
Mm-hmm. Are a bit more privileged than the regular run of the mill. So I don't know if they debated or, had questions or not. But I can't help think of is from Monty Python, The Life of Brian. What is it that he said? I think he said, blessed is the cheesemakers. Cheesemakers? Well, maybe those purveyors of dairy products in general,
I am not familiar with Monty Python.
Oh, it's...
I mean, I'm aware of it, but
there's some really funny stuff there. And, how much was understood in the moment.
How often did he repeat it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe take 2 or 3 and use them as his focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how often did he really preach this? Or did he have a private conversation with his disciples later that helped cement this in their memories?
They would have had to understand it too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and amongst them, only a couple of them would have the ability to read and write.
Yeah. Makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. When you think of the teachings of Jesus, what first comes to mind?
I always think of him with little children.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason. Yeah. Probably a picture when I was a child.
I was just thinking that. When we were home for my dad's funeral, I was showing Sadie through my home congregation. And it's quite a large building. And so she's like, I'm going to get lost. But we went to, there's Sunday school rooms around a bigger room where we would gather for the, gathering where you sing some songs and everything. And then you got sent to classrooms. And yeah, I'm looking at some of the artwork going, wow, some things don't change. And some things change a lot. But, those are some of those things just stay with you. They make an impression on how you understand faith.
Yeah. What kind of imagery comes to mind?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, many associate Jesus with parables and his stories, but Jesus also taught practical tips of life, often adding a new perspective. Not all his teachings are predictable or easily grasped. That is an understatement. This is true with the Beatitudes, a series of blessings. And just wait till you get to the woes. All right, reading through Matthew 5, 1 through 12 again. Pause after reading each blessing and name someone you personally know who fits the description. As you do this exercise, consider the following questions. How difficult or easy it is to think of someone described by each beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit. What exactly does that mean? Is that those who are troubled or going through troubles?
I don't think it refers to lack of money.
Mm-hmm. Or discouraged.
It's poor, but it's in a different, discouraged, mentally ill.
Mm-hmm. Because all these things are things that would, in some ways, would be looked down upon or considered bad, in regular life. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
A good example of that is, if you look out into a group of kids and you see the ones that are so quiet and so shy and so retiring, and as adults, they find their place, they find their mark, and they find their voice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled.
And not the traditional hunger and thirst.
Yeah, again, that's a different gospel that is much more, that this is more kind of spiritual.
Mhm.
The other one is much more visceral and earthy, like my stomach is growling,
Yes.
where this is hunger and thirst for righteousness. I don't know. I think a lot of people can fall under that one.
Mhm. Like, the old saying, life isn't fair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. There's some people who are just more forgiving and more merciful than others.
Yeah. Or there's a gentleness about them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you would find that with fragile people.
Mm.
They're easily hurt, and you wonder where they came up with the ability to be so kind towards others when maybe people aren't kind towards them. It's that
Mhm.
kind of,
Yeah.
how did they do that?
How are they able to find that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Blessed are the pure in heart.
Is there anyone that's pure in heart?
Maybe
if you're a
varying
human
degrees.
Maybe even go to Mother Teresa or
Uh,
saints, but
yeah.
that's
Well, there's no purity, but I guess folks who have more open hearts and who aren't like immediately jaded or immediately think the negative. I don't know.
yeah. Their glass is half empty. I don't know.
Yeah. Or people like my brother who's a scientist who says, well, of course it's full. It's half of it is water and half of it's air. It's entirely full. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, it's their way of dealing with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Their minds deal with the world that way,
Mm-hmm.
and others can do it other ways.
Yep.
It's an interesting thing.
Well, and I've known people who have a very negative outlook on things and people who've had very positive, and it isn't always necessarily linked to like their socioeconomic background.
Right.
I've found both in all the stratuses, and I don't know, whole nature versus nurture thing too there.
Yeah, you don't know sometimes where it comes from. What causes them to be the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting field of the study of the human mind and
Mm-hmm.
how it functions and how it survives. Because
Absolutely.
it's definitely in survival mode.
Mm-hmm. Right now, Sadie has forensic psychology class.
Oh, fun.
I'm just like, oh, I wish I could be in the corner listening to that, how our minds
remember
work.
when they started teaching.
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long ago, but there was a teacher at the school that got it going, and I don't. If you remember the CSI TV series, the creator of that happened to be a friend of one of the teachers and would come on periodic visits to discuss with us the making of that TV show when it was incredibly popular. We'd have assemblies, and this fellow would be up on stage
Really?
talking. It was just fascinating.
That would be amazing.
And
That
that's
would be
kind
amazing.
of the era that this class came out.
Mm-hmm.
Good for her.
Yeah,
and she continues to enjoy it.
I hope so. She is right. She is for sure. Now it's just beginning, but
Yeah.
I think for some of these things, for each one of us, comes more easily than others. Because I just think about they're studying all these different challenges that people have, and I mean, so you don't ask to be schizophrenic. You don't ask to be, all those kinds of things. But so you come out of wherever you're at, and for some it's easy to be merciful. For others, it'd be really hard to be merciful.
Life hasn't been kind to me, so I'm not going to be kind to you.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in pain, I'm going to cause you pain, so you feel what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of that.
Absolutely. So this list, I think some of this we can find ourselves in it, and other parts might seem very foreign to us. I don't think he's saying that, we're looking to be hurt, but that if we are struggling, we're blessed because we're not alone.
That's a hard sell.
It's a very hard sell. How do you look somebody in the eye, who's starving and say, oh, but you're very blessed? Well, you know what? Hand me something to eat for me and my family, and then we'll talk about blessing.
Yes.
And blessed are the peacemakers, and blessed are the persecuted when people revile you. I have a hard time finding blessings in being reviled.
Your reward is great in heaven.
It's kind of like, you're standing up for what you know is right, even if everybody's against you. That's the other thing. Sadie told me they're working through To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh.
Powerful, powerful book. And I think that is very much in line with, sometimes you just have to stand up for what you know is right, even if it's going to be awful and hard.
Required reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent stuff.
It is. They've been taking turns reading different parts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. A lot of the folks want to read Atticus's part, but are less interested in some of the other parts. I think just because they feel that attraction to someone who's just so
Pure
committed. Yeah, pure in spirit and just so committed to doing right.
Yes, Hollywood got it right for a minute when they put Gregory back.
Yeah.
He was perfect.
Mm-hmm. And I think when I think about those things, the struggle that Chuck and I have with all this and that we're in the middle of right now is we try to do what, in humility, try to do and say what is right. But we're not necessarily the only ones who pay the price. When we were in North Dakota, Fia was treated horribly. She paid the price for,
saying what you thought was right.
Yeah. And I think that's, you look at Sadie and go, we don't want you to have to pay a price. But I don't know. It's tough.
It is. It is if you're a person who's in public.
But I think it just even, for anyone generally, that you could lose relationships. You can.
Yeah. It's a very sensitive time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in on some pretty interesting conversations. And yeah, it's just a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very tough time.
It is. I think we're all just trying to find our way.
Yeah, reeling from it.
Yeah. General observations. I don't know. We've had a variety of observations. Except for the final blessing, all the Beatitudes are right now, this day. The blessings are to be experienced on this side of the grave, not later in heaven. Which Beatitudes have you personally experienced? Are any confusing? Or are there some that you wish Jesus would spend a little more time explaining it?
I certainly understand the mourn, and
Yeah.
so do you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've never been accused of being meek. So I don't know. And,
self-knowledge is good.
Oh, yeah, well. And I'm still confronted by the pure heart.
Yeah.
That still is one that I just definitely, peacemakers. There's something concrete there.
Yeah.
Even merciful.
Mm-hmm. There's concrete actions. Yeah.
Yeah, and the hunger. And poor in spirit to some degree, but that pure in heart is peacemakers, people that are persecuted.
But the pure in heart one is tougher to.
I sure think so.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like either you are or you aren't.
Yeah, because pure is 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Who's 100%?
Yeah. But yeah, I think that would be the confusing one. And I would, I do wish we had the commentary from Jesus that explains all of
But why
this.
did you say that?
Yep. The Beatitudes encourage believers to turn to God for guidance on living in radical new ways. Being meek, mournful, and hungry are not words usually used to describe people on the fast track to success. Nevertheless, God chooses to bless. God chooses to turn the world upside down, bringing joy from tears and hope from despair. God blesses the unexpected. That's just the way God operates. Because that's the thing, we have really set ways of seeing, what is the way things should be or the way things work.
Yeah.
This is just the way things work.
Yep.
And God is going, no, that may be your system, but that's certainly not my system.
Yeah.
And that can be a tough adjustment.
And this is a very, from what we know, we always have to say, from
Yes.
what we know.
Yes.
This is a violent time in history.
Yeah.
Because the constant conquering
Mm-hmm.
of peoples by other peoples. And so
Yep.
life was precarious at best.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely didn't give you tons of time for reflection. So
you can go out and one day and encounter some Roman soldiers, and well, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it took.
Mm-hmm. You just didn't know. And plus, and in different historians have described different periods of history as nasty, brutish, and short. And I think that was the one that was put to the medieval times. But
Yes.
I'm like, a lot of history, that's very true. But somehow people have made it through, and some of our most beautiful poetry and writings and come out of that.
Managed to come out. Yeah.
The things that can flower even in the midst of all that. I don't know. Feeling very philosophical today.
Well, this is a very philosophical thing.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it really is.
Yeah.
All right, the word among us. Andy was quite anxious about beginning kindergarten. His parents and grandparents have been trying to prepare him for the first day. They talked about new friends, learning new things, and recess. And he was not interested in any aspect of the venture. Finally, he agreed to attend the opening day. Once his first and only day of school was over, Andy announced he need not return. He already knew everything the teacher taught. Why bother? What more could he possibly learn? So what do you say to Andy?
Well, there's the old story about the little boy that goes to school and goes one day and comes home and said, well, that was worthless. And mother said, why? I said, well, my brother told me when I go to school I can learn to read. Well, I didn't, and I can't, so I'm not going back. Yeah. So it's an absolute.
Mm-hmm. Very absolute terms.
Yeah.
And not able to recognize that there's a whole bunch of stuff.
More to come.
Yes, beyond what you know.
If this is all there is, why go back? You can just see some 5-year-old coming with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you're like, well, at least you get to see your friends.
You get to have recess, lunch.
We might find ourselves chuckling at the idea of knowing everything by kindergarten. Andy simply did not realize all that was before him. I still remember everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. A lot of it's true.
It's very true. Unfortunately, we as Christians sometimes sound just like Andy. We get in a rut and think we have learned everything there is to know about following Jesus. But even if we have grown up in the church and currently attend worship as well as Sunday school classes regularly, there is still much to learn. What attitudes block Christians from Jesus? And what attitudes help us learn from Jesus?
Well, there's the attitude that Is that you?
Yep, my eldest is attempting to call me, so I'm going to send her a message saying, can't answer the phone right now. There you go.
And that's something how attached we are.
Yeah.
I think, there is a time period in life when, especially when you're out of school, you go away to college, or, you step into the next part of your life when I don't have to go to church anymore because I did that when I was in school, and now I'm out of school, and I don't know what it has to offer me, and it's only for old people, and it's boring, and for whatever reasons, but you lose a huge chunk of people right after they get out of high school.
Mhm.
And then if you're lucky, if they're lucky, something draws them back in.
Yeah. Oftentimes it's life transitions,
Yes, absolutely.
particularly kids.
And it's pretty tough to disagree with some of the things they have to say.
Mhm.
Because basically, it's just how they feel about it. So,
Well, and it's, that time of life is just such a time of questioning and exploring, and they ask some excellent questions and, are just trying to figure things out. And, you don't want to discourage that. And I think that we all can benefit from that, going through that creative time with them,
And it's a very difficult time.
Mhm.
From the time you're 18 to, I don't know, 26, 27,
Mhm.
in your late 20s, it's rock and roll.
Mhm.
It's everything you have to deal with, and they're just
Mhm.
not crisis, but huge decisions you make.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Huge,
And
impactful.
things are changing drastically.
Yes,
And quickly, and you're supposed to know what to do.
Yeah. If they hand you that diploma, and that means, well, now you know everything you need to know, and it's just beginning. And you don't know half of what you should know. It's a scary time. It's
It is.
exciting and scary all at the same time.
Mhm.
I remember thinking, I'm never going to make it. If I'm not living here in the house with mom and dad, I'm done.
Mhm.
Because I don't know how to pay taxes.
Yeah, I don't know how to do any of
I don't know
this.
how to buy a car. I mean, yeah. It's just lots of stuff. So
Absolutely. Well, and I think, and there's something about that discerning eye at that age where it's easy to get discouraged because for so long there's certain voices or certain positions that you just knew you can rely on. And then you discover that they're weak, they're not perfect, they don't know everything. And so that kind of shakes the foundations of what you've always known. I still remember the day I was horrified to discover that my father was a hypocrite. And he would have said, well, no, duh, and just, what do you mean?
You're supposed to be.
Exactly. Yes. He was my Superman.
Yes.
He could do anything.
Yes. Yeah, that comfort zone, that head I kissed that smelled like shoe leather because Daddy sold shoes. It always smelled like a new pair of shoes. Yeah, it's tough. It's one of the legs on your stool.
Mm-hmm. When I think about, we've done a lot of wondering about why so many people get pulled into things like white supremacy and this kind of stuff. They're at an age, they're at a time where they're questioning who has authority, who can I rely on, who can I trust?
What's their place in society?
Exactly, and what's truth, and there's certain organizations that really just step into that and say, here's your identity.
Yeah, lots of them.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them.
Preaching, join us because we have the answers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And a young person like that, they really don't have a way of knowing what the truth is.
Mm-hmm. And secular and religious, in both ways.
And I think we've all met people who are very charismatic, They very easily draw people to them.
Absolutely.
They have a way of talking. They have an appearance. They have something about them that you want to believe that they're saying.
Yes.
It's not that you necessarily do, but you want to.
There's just something very comforting and assuring about it.
Yes, and I think that is when it's the most frightening.
Yes.
But a kid isn't going to see a young person. They're not going to see into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, they don't have the wisdom and the life experience.
Don't have the cynicism, which is also part and parcel of getting older.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, disciples of Jesus are intended to be lifelong learners, allowing God to shape and reshape our lives. Each day becomes an opportunity to integrate the teachings of Jesus into daily life. God's Spirit nudges and invites us to see things from God's perspective. The Beatitudes are an example of teachings by Jesus which have the potential of turning our world upside down. That's very uncomfortable. The Beatitudes are a vision of what happens when the ethic of love becomes the principle of living. This is a radical way to live. I mean, that's really the heart of it. As we reflect on the Beatitudes, it is easy to see how it might take a lifetime to understand the Beatitudes, let alone live them. So how does one strive in daily life for humility, meekness, purity of heart? And why are these things so very, very radical?
Well, they go against our need for self-protection.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Our need to hold up some kind of barrier against the world saying, you're not going to hurt me.
And, and there's a reason why we've had to learn that self-protective kind of reaction. It's very easy to be hurt.
And it's hard to let that guard. It's letting your guard down. And that's a very hard thing to do.
Yep. That vulnerability, it's a risk. Yeah. And God's saying it's worth the risk. And we're going, if you say so, I don't know. And I think the older I get, the less likely I am to just be like, well, of course.
Whereas 20 years ago, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Things are tempered. It's almost like you got one hand up and no, and the other one going this way. And,
Yep. That's one of the things I've thought about a lot is, what are some basic things that I want my kids and like our confirmation kids and others to know, to learn, that's going to stand by them through life. And
practical faith.
Yeah, practical faith. That's a good way to put it.
And it's almost a oxymoron. Because there's nothing practical about faith. It's not a practical thing.
No.
And so, but give them something to hold on to.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that they can always come back. That the door's always open.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Oh, big time.
Because there's been times when I might be teaching a concept and they're like, yeah, whatever. But then if I tell a story of it actually happening in life, and then they're just zeroed in on that.
Well, it's a great teaching tool. And usually a lot of my stories were funny.
Yeah.
Because I've had a funny life. And I noticed in those times, that's when I really had the kids. They were listening. And I was trying to, and sometime you get to the end of it and go, no, what was my point? Was I trying to?
Yeah, where am I going?
I was having so much fun telling you this story that I lost track of what my point was.
I love it. Did you go down rabbit trails sometimes?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Especially in history.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I majored in the wrong subject. And when I got to teach history for 4 years, it was just fabulous years. And then, off we go.
Off we go. Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I think how do we strive for humility, meekness, purity of heart? I think it's a lot of it has to do with awareness. I think we just go through our lives unthinkingly, we're just we're just doing whatever we're doing based on what's going to make me feel good or what, whatever.
Right.
And so I think striving for these things means actually thinking about it, even if you don't have to. I'm going to.
Purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the transformation comes in. But there's a part of me that's sitting there going, but I don't wanna.
Absolutely.
What's so radical about the Beatitudes? It's not about our comfort. It's not about necessarily what we want. It's not necessarily anything that the world says is good or right. That's a lot. Some have dissected the word beatitude into the words be an attitude. Our daily attitudes are to be humility, meekness, and purity of heart. We are to hunger for God and seek peace fervently. What does it mean for you to be an attitude of blessing?
Probably the old saying, blessed to be a blessing.
Yeah.
Pass it on.
I think there's times when I've had to just very, very, very directly say to myself, okay, you're frustrated or you're tired or whatever, but you're gonna engage with this person and you're not gonna take your stuff out on them,
Yes.
And kind of coach yourself. How am I going to choose to act in this situation? What experience am I giving others?
And if someone needs to talk to you about something, it's to consciously be a listener.
Yes.
Not wander off, into something else while you're trying to pay attention to them. It's a conscious act. It's a physical act.
Very much so. And not listening so that you can have a moment to tell your story or to make your point,
yes.
But to receive wherever they're coming from.
Just be there.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we teach in premarital counseling is active listening. And
so easy to say, so hard to do.
Exactly. It's almost like a muscle. You need to work it.
Yeah. Because it gets to be that half listen, half think of something else.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, how hard is it for us to choose the attitude of humility, meekness, and purity of heart? Well, humility, I think most days I'm like, do I really even know anything?
That realization, I thought I knew that.
Mm-hmm. And I think just watching some of the stuff that's going on in the world right now has really emphasized to me my sense of how I don't understand what other people's lived experience is. That I have a very limited understanding of the struggles of other people.
Absolutely. I have talked to friends recently who have, along with me, said, I wake up in the middle of the night and I think about all this and I worry.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry about where things are heading and that I have no power to make changes.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised, but I'm also bothered by the fact that it is getting to people. And ones that don't live near the situation, ones that live far away from the situation, because it's affecting everyone.
It is.
And it affects everyone.
I think one of the hard things when we were at the meal after my dad's funeral, I was talking to my cousin who lives in Tyler.
Yes.
Has lived there. Yeah, has lived there for most of her life. But because my aunt and uncle adopted her from Malaysia, and they had a horrible time getting, all the paperwork worked out and everything when they moved back here. They make it really hard. It should be straightforward. We're adopting a baby, but no, it's very difficult. And she said it's really hard for her to, she said, I travel with my passport.
Imagine.
And I'm just like, but you're Rachel. Why would, but yeah, absolutely. And the worry she has, 2 of her kids are adults now. They're both boys. And she's so scared. And I was just trying to understand what that would feel like to have to be so worried to leave the door, leave the house.
And that's what they're living with now.
Yeah.
Other people are living with that fear.
Mm-hmm. And I think we all need humility in those things because we all have our own blindnesses, I guess. And I think that's part of the transformative work of God too, is to say the folks around you are your neighbors. They are the people I care about. So show mercy, show humility, show peacemaking, show all that kind of stuff for the benefit of the world.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're all having to do some deep thinking these days.
Yeah. It's a serious time.
It is. It is. Though I do, I don't want to beat a subject to death, but it makes me really wonder about what it was like during the 60s when there was so much protesting going on and so much upheaval and uncertainty. I mean, are there any connections that you see, that you like, I recognize that feeling, or I recognize this experience, or is this something very different?
The Vietnam War was a divisive issue. And those of us that were of that age, had people very dear to us sent off to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And none of us could quite figure out why.
Yeah.
In my group, there were others that knew or thought they understood the reason for it. Couldn't wrap your arms around it, and where they were and what was going on with them. You also had a tremendously burgeoning drug culture.
Yeah.
And you had racial issues. You had just so many things coming as a kid coming at you at the same time, trying to navigate yourself.
That was so confusing.
Yeah. I often thought of it as that it's spring and someone goes out to the barn and opens it up and all these young lambs and the critters go running out into the pasture.
Mm-hmm.
Just thrilled to be free, but don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. And get themselves into all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was and of course it was an age of assassinations.
Yeah.
We lived with, you had both Kennedy brothers, you had Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. It was almost a case of who's next.
Yeah.
So that was an issue. The riots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this is different.
This is different. But I still think it's society changing times in its own way.
And we seem not to be able to change ourselves for the better unless we go through some horrible process.
Yeah, I remember as a kid and, starting to learn about history. And I remember I was looking at a book about the shooting at Penn State. And there's a picture of Kent State. And there's a woman kneeling over the body of another person, just with this face of anguish. And it was it's always stuck with me ever since. And I'm like, we're seeing that face. And why do we have to see that face again?
That was the incident that stopped a lot of the protests on campus.
I'm sure you're afraid.
Because the kids thought, I can die.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't stop the anger.
No.
But and it didn't stop them forever.
Mm-hmm.
But it really pulled things down because then it all of a sudden got real.
Yeah.
And then it was real.
And I think that's why so many white people are having such deep thoughts now, is because, oh, wait a minute, we're used to Black and brown people getting treated horribly, but they're killing white people. This is a whole different thing. I mean, and that doesn't say much about us, but we have to think about it now. I don't know.
Yeah, we have to, and if we don't want to, just turn on the news,
Mm-hmm.
because it will be on every news program you switch to.
Yeah.
In different forms, different
Mm-hmm.
approaches, and all the talk shows.
Mm-hmm.
The Sunday morning, which I watch after church.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're talking about.
Public safety message. Maria County Administrative phone lines are. Oh, okay. So Murray County phone lines are having problems, but 911 is still available. Okay. I always get worried when I hear that buzz because it's usually like an Amber Alert or something, and I'm like, oh no. I hope that, in example of the Beatitudes and the example of God seeking to transform us, I would hope that we can get to the point where injustice and violence and murder of anyone, no matter who they are, their skin color, is just as painful and outrageous and unacceptable as we feel for
Amen.
the white folks that are being killed.
Yeah,
So,
everybody.
for everybody. That's some heavy duty transformation that needs to happen in our hearts and consciousness. I got a lot of work to do. We all do. Man, we're being heavy today.
I know.
These dang blessed bees.
I think, why did you do this?
Oh, all right.
Good luck with the sermon on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, let's pray. Gracious God, help us to live the Beatitudes in daily life. Give us courage to seek you and trust in your blessings. Amen. Select a Beatitude and adopt it as your personal New Year's resolution. Well, I've said many a times, I have been praying for the gift of patience from God since I was a teenager. I'm now in my 50s, and I don't know that I've progressed too far. We're all a work in progress.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Oh, I don't know if anybody even watches these.